Good evening and welcome to a special edition of KTN Business. Today is exactly 1 year. I almost said 100 days. It's 1 year since the Jubilee government took office, and we're taking stock of what exactly they've been doing. And sitting with me today is the Cabinet Secretary for Energy and Petroleum, Davies, Chirchir. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Bwana Waziri, when the Jubilee government took office, you had a huge promise, and I can just quote it from your manifesto. The Jubilee promised to create reliable energy by existing national grid network and promoting renewable energy. How far are you in delivering this promise?
Thank you, Bonney. We came into office 1 year today. I remember the swearing-in ceremony at the Kasarani Stadium on the 9th of April, which was exactly 1 year today. And the cabinet secretaries were sworn in on the 15th of May. We, as soon as I came into this privileged appointment, we quickly mapped out the power matrix because we recognize that for this country to stay competitive and be able to take advantage of that in the manufacturing sector, in making Kenya a competitive destination, we mapped out a power matrix. We recognize that power cost in Kenya is very high and is not good for manufacturing sector. It doesn't help the economy. Even if power comes to our home today, paying those bills and the cost of power is very high. So we mapped out a generation matrix that will basically bring out what we have termed as 5,000 plus megawatts, but it was not so much about the number. It was about the matrix that will bring out the cost of power down. At a cost of the denomination of almost 20 cents US for the domestic user today, and 14 cents for industry.
The viewers can appreciate the figures that you're talking about. That's the mapping that you're talking about.
And for industry today, we did bring out that matrix that brings out 5,000, still quite renewable, 61% renewable, where we're going to generate 1,600 megawatts of power through geothermal, another 1,900 megawatts on coal, because we have our own coal in Kitui. Those two plants of 960, each one is in Lamu and Kitui. Another 700, quite a significant amount of power coming in through LNG, a plant.
So obviously the 5,000 figure was not coming from geothermal or hydro as we know it.
It is a power matrix that has been defined, but very importantly that brings out the cost. So having identified the strategic, what you would call the strategic policy initiatives that would address the Jubilee administration competitiveness for this economy, and which we promised Kenyans. We have mapped out work programs that defines and brings out the delivery of the 5,000 megawatts, and more importantly, bring down the cost by 40% in the next 40 months.
Waziri, looking at what we have on our screen right now, there's a clear framework and plan of getting to the 5,000 mark as our target. But also critics have called out the Ministry of Energy, and especially when you're talking about power generation, in regards to the long bureaucratic processes of approval of tenders, of getting the people to supply this kind of services. How much do they affect your timelines?
I'm not really worried about the timelines, because after putting out the timelines and approving those timelines through cabinet, we have gone through a framework of independent power producers. We have gone to tender today. We expression of interest. We have since evaluated and closed and awarded or selected the best companies who can deliver on that matrix. As we speak today, we are waiting for the 700 megawatts to close the bids on the 15th of this month. For the 960 megawatts, we are closing the bids on the 23rd. And I can assure you, having an approved roadmap, and for which many Kenyans may not understand, power generation is not about an event. It is a process. And to be able to generate 5,000 megawatts in those 40 months, or under 3 years today, we've been told it is extremely ambitious. And for us, we have to do things out of the ordinary. So we are on course.
That's the spirit of Jubilee.
We are on course.
Right.
And I can assure Kenyans here now and that even as we speak, the delivery for the first 12 months of about 18 months of 540 megawatts, we are on course.
Waziri, you've mentioned independent power producers in your speech and in your plan to rope them and just gunning at the 5,000 mark as our target. Looking back, independent power producers have been bedeviled and they have said we're not operating at a level playing field, we're not giving equal space. Are there specific steps that the Jubilee government under your watch have taken to ensure that these people have level playing ground?
I think, again, very important. Thank you for that. Because power generation is a very profitable business, what we've done is we've got many investors who want to generate power.
Right.
And because the demand side of the power must be very critically checked to make sure we don't have stranded generate power, which is you call stranded power.
Right.
Power which is generated and which you can't sell to the economy, but for which it must be paid for. We have taken the IPPs, the independent power producers, through a competitive process. The competitive process will demand that the company who knows how to manage cost, who have got the best conversion turbines, and who can give us the best cost of power would be appointed to generate power for the economy.
Right.
So we are looking at really using the best IPPs rather than single sourcing,
Right.
taking them through competition.
When you talk about the best IPPs, are we talking multinationals or are we talking Kenyans? Who exactly fits into that description?
I think they've been open both for local and internationals, and we've seen consortiums of both local companies and international companies coming to do this. Power generation is very expensive. You're talking about $1 million to generate 1 megawatt of power.
Right.
Anything between $1 million, depending on the generation mode, whether it is hydro, up to $4 million
Right.
per megawatt. So locals have come together in partnership with multinationals to be able to do this.
Right.
And we want to encourage that even as we do the other generation modes, which we have not advertised, we want to encourage our locals to play ball and ensure that they
Waziri, we have to shift gears a little bit, but you've talked of generating power. Let's talk a little bit about selling it. And Kenya Power has come under sharp criticism from a lot of people watching right now. Under your tenure, are we going to see a time where we'll have an independent distributed license to compete with Kenya Power?
We would love to have that, but like I came from telecommunication,
Right.
and you know what happened to the wireline telephone company, because it's very difficult to strand the whole country
Right.
on cables. This is the challenge. We don't have a technology today where you can distribute power using like frequency in
Right.
telecommunication.
Right.
The biggest challenge we have is the transmission, distribution, and the reticulation, the network.
So you reckon
which
if we
brings
have
power,
a private player in this space, then probably we'll have a boost in efficiency?
it would be.
Right.
But what we are doing, as we recognize with the distribution of the kind of megawatts we are trying to generate, is it is necessary to improve the capacity of Kenya Power.
Right.
We need to work on our transmission. We recognize there is a challenge. We need to work on the distribution. Even without the users of power recognizing that there is a quality challenge, the power that is fed to Kenya Power, you call it the off-taker,
Right.
will have so much losses.
Right.
So if you buy 100 megawatts, by the time you are distributing to your home and my industry and the end user, you are possibly only selling 80 megawatts.
Right.
And yet you bought 100 megawatts. You have to pay for the 100 which you bought.
Right.
So you have to make sure that the distribution network is efficient so that the losses are minimal.
Right.
We are currently working on building a transmission network of 400 megawatts, 400 kV, kilovolt lines. When you do engineering, you'll understand that when you do high voltage, you can do very low current,
Right.
and therefore you minimize the losses.
Right. Let's shift gears very quickly. Let's talk about the cost of energy for movement right now. Let's talk about fuel and petroleum right now. Transformation of KPRL from a refinery to what it is now. We can't really term it if it's a marketing or it's a storage facility, but that particular move was supposed to save Kenyans at least 10 shillings in regards to what they pay at the pump. We haven't seen that. What went wrong?
I think on the side of petroleum products, we are doing quite well. Petroleum products are controlled their world prices.
Right.
And we have a very competitive open tender system,
right,
which allows the best oil marketing company to bring in the product and distribute to the rest of the oil marketing companies. So there is a very clear open competition. At the time of KPRL, because of the age of the refinery, we were not able to really give Kenyans very clean products,
right,
very high sulfur content, and we were loading a cost of up to 7 to 10 shillings per liter. That is not happening today. So to the extent of the cost today,
yes,
it will be having a premium, not so much of 10 shillings, because they were not bringing 100% of the product.
Right.
They were basically doing about 20%.
But was it everyone agrees that we need a strategic storage of sorts, if I may use layman's term, so that every time global prices change, they don't have to affect us? We don't see a lot of commitment from the government in that.
We are working on a lot of tank farms. One of the options that we have for KPRL would be to use the tank farms once we finish with our investor, ESA,
right,
who we are still negotiating on what you call deed of termination.
Right.
Once we finalize that, we'll possibly be using that tank farm as a storage facility that offers that strategic store, and that will help us in managing the price. But it cuts both ways. It cuts both ways.
Right.
You can buy product this month,
right,
and while you have that product in store, the prices internationally goes down.
Right.
You will still have to recoup and cover the cost for which. So it cuts both ways.
Right. Final question. I know our time is out and my director will kick me out, but Tal Oil last year paid about 700 in terms of the taxes for exploration. Everyone is wondering, are we getting value for our money in regards to all the people exploring, and we get all the news happening? But my direct question would be, do we have a well laid out plan of revenue sharing between the government, which would be Kenyans, and these people?
We have a very clear established international framework, right, called production sharing contract, which is laid out in CAP 308, the Petroleum Act,
right,
which defines how profits are shared. In the production sharing contract, Bonney, it defines that you come in and explore with your own money.
Correct.
Very risky upstream exploration. But when you are successful, you are apportion what we call cost oil, right, to recover the cost of exploration. And the profit oil apportion up to 78%, depending on the daily production rate, will go to government, and some 22%.
So you can assure Kenyans
so I can assure Kenyans
what
that
getting is
it is according to the act passed by Parliament.
Right.
We are managing costs to make sure that we capture the accounts properly. And I can assure you the framework under which Kenya is working is based on knowledge that has been established over time, right, by some of our other countries who got the oil earlier and may not have done it very well.
Right. Waziri, to your frustration in mind, this conversation has to end now, but many thanks for just showing up and helping us give an audit of what your ministry is doing. I've been speaking to Davies Chirchir, who is the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Energy and Petroleum. It's been exactly 100 days since he took office, and he's been just shedding light as to exactly what his ministry has been doing.